In this session, we're going to be looking at workshop safety. My name is Rory, and I've worked as a safety advisor within schools and universities in England for the past 15 years and have recently returned to Ireland. My main role there involved inspections and training of staff in different areas such as fire, manual handling training, machinery safety, chemical safety, all of that sort of stuff. So I used to carry out inspections of workshops within secondary schools, and it's an area that I really enjoyed. I do a bit of woodwork myself, mostly scroll saw type stuff, simple jigsaws, portraits, that sort of thing, and use a lot of the machines similar to what you're using within the sheds. So I'm aware of the dangers within workshops. I think the sheds are a great idea to get people learning new skills and the social aspect as well, which is very important. And I have to say, I really enjoyed the recent series on TG Carr about sheds. It was really, really good. So the thing is with health and safety is that it's important that it's managed right to ensure the safety of us all. None of us set out to have an accident. We don't. But when things go wrong, they can be very serious. And we want to avoid that from happening. There's no point looking back saying, oh God, I wish I'd done this, that, or the other. The time to take action is now. So today we're going to look at some of the key areas of health and safety within the sheds. It's important we focus on health and safety as we don't want accidents to occur. So by taking some simple steps, we can make sheds as safe as possible. I understand that you all have different skills and backgrounds, so we need to make sure that we use those skills, we do that in a safe way. For example, someone competent within the sheds teaching a new shedder, how to use the various machines. Like it's important if you're going to do a job, learn to do the job safely before you do the job at all. All too often accidents happen that could have easily been avoided. I've investigated a fair few over the years that could have been avoided if simple measures were in place. So the accident they tend to result from unmaintained equipment, complacency, or not bothered, sure, it'll be fine type attitude, or untrained people using the equipment, and they're not aware of the hazards. So every health and safety course you'll ever attend is going to mention the word hazard, and it's just something that has the potential to cause you harm. And then we need to think about what we need to put in place to make it as safe as possible. And this is just referred to as the control measures. Simple one, for example, would be a guard on a machine, or an isolation switch, or training in place, that sort of thing. But the main point really is that while we're having a bit of crack in the sheds, that it's done in a safe manner. That's the key point. We can work away, we can carry out our activities, but the main point is that they're carried out in a safe manner. So we're going to reduce the chance of an accident or incident occurring within the sheds. First thing we're going to look at here is a list of safety points we need to consider within sheds. So there's many more points you could add to it, I'm sure, but these are just some of the key ones. So the ones we're going to concentrate on today is general workshop safety and a little bit on high-risk machines such as the bandsaw, the table saw, sanders and laser cutters as well, as they seem to be becoming fairly popular. So firstly, fire. It's extremely important that the building has a working fire alarm, and that's tested on a weekly basis. Fire extinguishers, are they the correct type, and is there sufficient emergency light to make sure you can get out of the building safely to your assembly points? Also that you can easily access the fire extinguishers and means to activate the alarm. Sometimes people they tend to forget about those with limited mobility, but you need to have a plan in place to get them out of the building as well safely in the event of an emergency. And this is what they call a PEEP, so it's a personal emergency evacuation plan. Some people think it's down to the fire service to get them out of the building. I'll tell you something, it's not. It's your responsibility to get them out of the building safely. So you need to have a plan in place. So there's a link here on this slide here to a template that's available on the Health and Safety Authority website. And you could use that to be adapted, to put together your personal emergency evacuation plan. We also need to think about safety of the overall premises. Is it clean and tidy? Have inspections been carried out and written records kept? I'm not expecting you to be experts at all, but just have a good look around and see if there's anything that needs sorting out. It's a good idea not to have the same people carrying it out each time, and the reason for that is a fresh set of eyes is going to spot issues that you may have overlooked or not noticed previously. It's the same thing as someone coming into the house and seeing a load of dust behind the TV, but you've just got used to it. So a fresh set of eyes might pick up on things that you've overlooked. So the next point we'll be focusing on is machinery or workshop safety. So we'll go into that in some depth over the next few slides. Training, also extremely important. A log is kept of those that have been trained in the equipment. A simple induction, for example, from members. For members, like a 10-15 type demonstration on a machine. So some shedders, they might not be aware of the dangers, and for that reason it's important that they're shown how to use the equipment safely and that they're supervised until they're safe to operate it on their own. Again, a written record needs to be kept. It's a good idea to have a closed loop system in place. So, in other words, signed by the person delivering the training and then the person receiving it. This hopefully will never be needed, but should a claim occur, then you have the records in place. Sometimes the question gets asked, can we use videos as training? Yeah, they can be useful, but in my view, practical training is better as you get hands-on experience. And you tend to remember it better as well. Well, I tend to anyway. So general safety within the premises, such as slips, trips and falls, they tend to account for over about a third of all accidents. So can you get in and out of the building safely? Are walkways clear of obstructions? You need to think of these things. Personal protective equipment. We'll go into that in a lot more detail as we make our way through the presentation, looking at hearing protection, respiratory protection, which is a big one, because dust is a silent killer, and sometimes it's not even thought of. Then we've got insurance and liability, another big area. So if an accident occurs, sod's law that the premium was going to rise the following year. But by having simple control measures in place, we can reduce the chance of injury occurring. Simple things like guards, for example, and machinery maintained. So each shed needs to have an accident report book to record any incidents that might occur. Also, when I think of it, each shed needs to have a safety statement in place. This just outlines the shed's commitment towards health and safety. Again, very important that it's signed and dated. So recording of personal details, often forgotten about. But it's important to have this information, such as emergency contact details of those that will oversee the safe functioning of the shed, like key holders, for example. Cleanliness, our toilets and general areas kind of kept clean and tidy. If you're cleaning the toilet, only put down one product. Some people think that by putting a few down, you'll do a better job. The danger when they're mixed, they can give off gas, which has happened in one investigation that I carried out in the past. Stuff was mixed together and it created chlorine gas, which is better known as mustard gas, I suppose. Just remember not to mix chemicals unless it specifies you can. Also, just to mention while it comes into my head, a common issue I've come across is loose toilet seats. So that's worth checking those as well. We don't want someone falling off the throne. And then storage of substances on site, such as sprays, adhesives, fuels. Are they stored in an appropriate metal cabinet? And that's outlined on the building's fire risk assessment and the building plan. So the fire service are aware of the additional dangers if they have to rock up to site. Then there's the safe use of hazardous substances. So you need to have a list of substances within the shed outlined and then get the safety data sheet for each product. And from that, you get the information which goes into your hazardous substances risk assessment. So that's anything that has a hazard classification label, such as toxic, irritant, corrosive, etc. Because if something goes wrong, you need to have the information to hand. And by gathering that information from the material safety data sheet and putting it onto a chemical risk assessment, which is a short document, normally 2 pages, you have that information readily to hand. So it will tell you what first aid measures you need to take in the event of an emergency. I'm not going to go into legislation here in any great detail today. We'll just touch off the key points. So health and safety legislation, it applies to sheds. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, you need to have a safety statement in place. I know a lot of you will. I know some sheds make up their own safety statements using the Be Safe module on the Health and Safety Authority website. My take on this would be to have a model safety statement put up on the shed's website, and then all you have to do is tweak it a little bit for your own individual sheds. So there's no point in overcomplicating it, just try and keep it simple. You also need to have risk assessments in place and actions addressed. The other thing is we all have a thing called a duty of care. In simple terms, it means that we act in the members or whoever visits the shed's best interest by making sure we don't do something that could have a negative impact on ourselves or others around us. So we need to make sure that health and safety is managed effectively. We can address this by having simple risk assessments in place. And we have a slide on risk assessment coming up shortly as well. Some people get a bit worried when they hear the word risk assessment, but there's plenty of ones out there that are on the Health and Safety Authority website that can be adapted so you're not starting from scratch at all. Safe use of work equipment. There's plenty of codes and practice in place that address safe use of machinery, and I'm not going to go into that in any great depth here today, but the main point is that machinery is suitable and maintained in good working order, and only those that are competent use the equipment. I often get asked, well, what's competency? Well, competency is the combination of skills, knowledge, and experience that someone has to perform a task safely. That's it in a nutshell. The final little bit we'll look at is protective devices such as lockouts, low voltage overload switches, the different types of signage you need to have in place. We'll have a look at hearing protection and risk assessments. Are they in place and communicated out to the relevant people and recorded? That they're actually written down, and you need to have evidence that they're being communicated out. One of the key things is to keep a record of the inspections and risk assessment training that you carry out with a legible signature and a date. Ideally print the signature, but sometimes it's awful hard to figure out, whose signature it is from a squiggle on a page. Then there's the British Standard. That gives clear guidance to those responsible for machines, tools, or machine handling, and for anyone who's involved with using the sort of machines that you have in your sheds. So there's a British Standard out there. I believe it's €102 the last time I looked to buy it, and it provides guidance on the equipment and machinery in sheds. It gives general guidance on room layouts, lighting, signage, and hazards associated with the various machines, all of that sort of stuff. So it's well worth having. So with personal protective equipment, firstly we need to look at the job and what personal protective equipment is needed. It's often abbreviated to PPE, but I'm not really a big fan of abbreviations, so they won't be used throughout this presentation. So what type of personal protective equipment is needed is going to be decided by the type of job. Also, it's important that we keep it in good condition. The amount of times over the years that I've seen people with safety glasses on the tops of their heads, or ones that are all scratched, you wouldn't see a thing through them. Sure, they're no good unless they're in good condition and they're worn. So simple rules for the wearing of personal protective equipment, they need to be enforced with a gentle reminder and show them how to use it safely. Although you might think it's pretty straightforward in most cases, some people might just need a little bit of guidance. They might never have used it before. Then finally, the personal protective equipment needs to be stored so it remains in good condition and accessible. We see here a few images with the blue background. The blue colour just means that it's mandatory wearing and it should be displayed on or near the machine, and it just gives them a gentle reminder to actually wear it, that it's mandatory, has to be done. A little bit on safety signage. So we need to have appropriate signage in place. So it's going to be red for fire extinguishers, and make sure they're easily accessible and the correct height for what you're doing. So if you're doing the likes of laser cutting, you tend to have a CO2 extinguisher, close by, just in case a fire does break out within the actual laser cutter. So we see the prohibited sign there. That's just a red circle on diagonal, and it just outlines that certain behaviour is not permitted on the premises, such as smoking, for example. Then green relates to fire safety signage and first aid. Think within your sheds or access routes to final exit points. Are they clear? Is emergency lighting working, and is it tested monthly and recorded? Is your first aid box easily accessible and well stocked? Mandatory then is the colour blue, as we said, and will be used for the likes of hearing protection, gloves, face shields, etc. And it's normally affixed to the machine or in a prominent place near it. Hazard warning signs, as we said earlier, a hazard is anything that has the potential to cause harm. Then we need to put in place control measures to reduce the level of risk. So the link on this slide will save you a few quid. So you can make any sign that you want for free and then just simply laminate it and put it up securely. One key thing is that signage needs to be displayed, but I don't want you to go overboard with it, because then people are going to become a bit like signage blind. So just keep it simple and have key signage in place. No need to overcomplicate it at all. Thanks for watching the previous slides. They're just a snippet of part of the whole course with regards machinery safety and workshop safety. So the key point is we need to manage it effectively to reduce the risk. If the risk is high, we want to knock it down to medium. Better again, can we knock it down to low? And this course addresses all the key areas, all the hazards, specific hazards that you'll encounter within your shed areas, and then putting in place the appropriate practical control measures to reduce the risk to an acceptable level. If you're interested in any of the content you've seen here and would like to participate in the whole course, just get in contact with me with my contact details that are on the slide there before you. Thank you very much for your time.